Hmm. Welcome to students. In previous class, I told you I completed up to the collection of biological samples and how to send the samples to the forensic science laboratory for chemical analysis. Along with biological samples like blood, urine, kidney, a piece of kidney, a piece of liver, a piece of brain, all those biological samples should send to the forensic science laboratory or regional forensic science laboratory (RFSL) for chemical analysis. In addition to along with that biological samples, information also should send. What is the information? That means you should collect the history, preliminary history of the patient. What is the poison detected? If you are you should collect the information from his relatives or from the case sheet supplied by the hospital. All this information should be supplied to the forensic science laboratory. What is the analytical procedure after after receiving the biological samples? The forensic science laboratory will do all this procedure, but it is not important to your examination point of view. But to know, I will outline this analytical procedure. After receiving these biological samples, the forensic scientists, the technicians, all those staff will do the following steps. That means they will divide the toxin from the biological tissue. 3 steps they will do. First, they will separate the toxic substance from the biological tissue, and step 2 is they will purify the toxic substance from the derived material and chemical analysis by what is the toxic substance, detection of the poisoning substance is third method. That means the separation of the poisonous substance from the biological tissue, purification and detection of the specific poison by chromatography, gas chromatography, thin layer chromatography, all those methods. According to their convenience, they divided those substances in 5 groups. Those are gaseous substances, gaseous materials, inhalation poison. They divided those gaseous substances and volatile substances. 5 groups. Number 1 is gases. Number 2 is steam volatile poisons. Number 3 is metallic poisons. Number 4 is non-volatile organic poisons. Number 5 is miscellaneous poisons. These 5 groups, according to their convenience, they divided these poisonous substances into 5 groups, and according to those groups, they will follow the analytical procedure. Then, after detection of poison, you should give the opinion of your opinion. After postmortem examination and the chemical analysis report, you should give the postmortem report, your opinion in the postmortem report. Cause of death, what is the cause of death? After examining the postmortem report, examination and chemical analysis report, I am so and so opinion. Like that, you should give the postmortem cause of death. toxicity. This is important because what is the toxicity of the specific poison? That means some poisons will more toxic, even a small minute quantities will cause death. Even some poison substances, even more large quantities, they will not give the lethal symptoms. So this therapeutic index is the ratio of the toxic substance to the effective dose of a drug. That means some poison substance, even a little dose, very minute dose causes death, like cyanides. Some poison substances, even large doses, cannot produce lethal symptoms. This is the therapeutic index. Lethal dose. What is lethal dose? That means lethal dose is the dose that kills the person. Minimum lethal dose is the smallest dose that kills the person or injure the health of the person. These are the definitions. Usual lethal dose is the poison is 10 times that of the therapeutic dose. What is Young's rule? This therapeutic rule calculated in children is by Young's rule. Adult dose into adult age in years is equal to result divided by sum of the child's age plus 12 gives the therapeutic dose of lethal dose of the child. This is called Young's rule. Toxic and lethal drug levels. What are the levels of the toxic drugs? That means analytical techniques, by use of the analytical methods, the toxic drugs varies differently in different types of toxic substances, widely varies. That means because the method, in the detection of the toxic substance by use of method, what is the method they adopt? So adoption of the method varies the toxic levels of the drug, and also site of the sampling. That means what is the site that biological sample is collected. This also influence the varying of the toxic levels of the drug, and also the causes for this variability of the toxicity of the drugs due to unusual susceptibility of the drug, and the combination of drugs also interact to according to their original characters, and some pre-existing natural diseases are the factors affecting this variation of the toxic levels of the substances. What are the interpretation? Next, after analysis, you should interpret the results of the chemical analysis to the disease, the age, weight of the disease, and the presence of any natural disease which precipitate the cause of death, and the presence of traumatic lesions, any traumatic lesion presence before injecting or before administering the poisonous substance, degree of the tolerance of the individual, hypersensitivity reactions, all those should be interpretation of the toxicological analysis. And also putrefaction and decomposition of the body also varies the toxic effects of the toxicological analysis. That means if a person, a diseased person decomposes, then naturally the body produces some poisonous substances. So after ingestion, the poison chemical analysis, the report of the chemical analysis varies. So for example, in the decomposition body, cyanides will be produced, HDS will be produced from the decomposed body. So this production will varies the chemical analysis report. Understand? So some in chemical analysis also, in some cases the poison should not be detected even though in chemical analytical procedure. What are the reasons to detect the poison? The poison may be eliminated immediately after ingestion, like irritant poisons or volatile substances, or the whole poison may be disappeared due to evaporation or oxidation, and the absorbed poison may be detoxified. So these are the reasons to failure of the to detect the poison. And also some visible alkaloid poisons cannot be definitely detected by chemical analysis, and some drugs rapidly metabolized and eliminated, and some organic poisons, especially alkaloids and glucosides, may be oxidized during the duration of the period and in between the life and the death. So according to these toxicity levels and the lethal doses, these drugs can be rated as its toxic effects. That means minimum dose that affects is the given super toxic. Less than 5 milligrams per kg body weight gives the super toxic. That means if a substance produces lethal effect or toxic effect with a minimal dose, by according to that dose, the rating has been given to the toxic poisonous substances. Less than 5 milligrams per kg body weight is super toxic. 5 to 50 milligrams per kg body weight is extremely toxic. 50 to 500 mg per kg body weight is very toxic. 0.5 to 5 grams per kg body weight is moderately toxic, and 5 to 15 grams per kg is slightly toxic. More than 50 grams per kg is non-toxic. Like that, the toxicity rate has been given to the poisonous substances. Even though chemical analysis, in some cases, there may be a false positive results. Many poisons enter the body regularly, even when you take food and we drink water. Through our food and through our water, some poisons are regularly enters, and because of this, false positive results may given by the analytical procedure. Due to decomposition, I told you, due to decomposition, naturally developed some poisonous substances in the decomposed tissues. Gases, methane and H2S may be produced. Alcohol may be produced due to decomposition. Carbon monoxide, cyanide, all those gives false positive results. So what are the fatalities of the drug? That means the drug fatalities are divided into 3 categories. Primary drug fatalities. That means the toxic substance itself causes death of the person. This is the primary drug fatality. Secondary drug fatality is some natural diseases precipitate the cause of death or enhance the cause of death is the secondary drug fatalities. And drug associated fatalities are those caused by homicidal and suicidal or accidental reasons of the poisonous substances. Drug automatism is a state of toxic delirium after ingesting poisonous substance. This toxic delirium is produced by the person after ingestion of the toxic substance, and in that delirious state, he will take additional doses of the poisonous substance without realizing that this delirium is produced due to that toxic substance. By taking this repeated doses and additional doses is known as drug automatism. These are all short notes and very short note questions. Duties of a medical practice. Now, very important portion of the topic, general considerations of the toxicology. Duties of a medical practice. If you completed your MBBS degree, you should you may be join in a government service, or you should establish you will be a private medical practitioner. It is very prime duty to treat the patient, and according to those duties, the duties of the medical practitioner are divided into medical duties. Those medical duties are care and treating the patient, and legal duties are very important in addition to the treating the patient. Medical duties, in addition to the medical duty, the legal duty, medical legal duty is very important in the practice, in your medical practice. So what are the legal duties? Then I will tell you the medical duties, because medical duty is very important. Even though legal duty is also important, but you should prime responsible to treat the patient. Your primary duty, our primary duty is to treat the patient, to save the life of the patient. So what are the legal duties? Note the preliminary particulars of the patient, that means age, sex, like that. And in case of suspected poisoning, you should admit the patient and take all the history of the patient if the patient is conscious, and admit the patient, and you should consult your senior colleague, and if any suspicion arises, like anybody commit homicide by introducing the poisonous substance, so you should observe the person who will come to see the patient, who are visiting the patients, visitors. You should very carefully observe the visitors of the patient and what they are giving to the patient, what is the food they are giving, what is the drink they are giving, like that you should observe. And if any suspicion arises to particular person, you should inform to the police. Immediately you should inform. If you are not informed, that is punishable under section 201 IPC. So these are the medical duties. So 201 IPC, this is non-compliance. If you are not, if you are unable to inform the police, you have a suspicion to. If you are raising a suspicion, you should inform. If you fail to inform the police, you are punishable. So your main duty is in homicidal poisoning cases. If any suspicion, you should inform immediately. In private practitioner, should also inform homicidal poisoning under section 39, and non-compliance is punishable under 170. Non-compliance means if you are fails to inform to the police is under punishable under 176 IPC. If the practitioner is summoned by the investigating officer, you are bound to attend to the court. If you are if you fails to attend to the court, it is punishable under 175. Like that, these legal sections should be read by you in your textbook. If the patient dies, you should not issue a death certificate. It is very, very important. You should not give this death certificate, but should inform the police. And in case of food poisoning or any other poisoning, you send to the biological sample to the forensic science laboratory. And after receiving the analytical report or chemical analysis report, then only you should give the postmortem report. So now the very, very important portion of this chapter is treatment of the poisoning. So very, very important portion of the general considerations toxicology is treatment of the poison. You are utmost responsible to this portion, because if you are in a government service or any other private practice, you should follow the protocol of the treatment. Immediately, if you are even a intensive care unit or in your nursing home, immediately whenever a patient comes to you, either poisoning or any other disease, immediately you should stabilize the patient. That means if the patient is in a crisis, or if the patient is in a air hunger or in dyspneic condition or a SOB or any other shock, you should first stabilize the patient. Stabilization by resuscitation. That means ABCD of resuscitation. That means A is airway and breathing, and circulatory failure, and D is respiratory and the CNS depression. So ABCD resuscitation is very, very important. If the patient is not in a crisis or he is stable, he is walking, talking, then you can evaluate. Like that, you should stop. You should immediately come to a conclusion that whether the patient is in a crisis or patient is not in crisis. Like that, first heading is stabilization. Under these protocol, you should treat the patient. Next is evaluation. If the patient is not in crisis, then you can take the history. What is the poison he has taken? What is the either he has taken or any other causes. Like that, you can take the history from the patient itself or from the relatives, and you should evaluate whether he is the vitals are stable or all the evaluation should be taken. Next is decontamination. That means you should decontaminate the person from the poisonous substance. That means you should remove the cloths if he has ingested poisoning, or the skin and eye should be irrigated. Skin will be irrigated 30 minutes with the saline or fresh water, and any poison will, if the poison spills into the eyes, the very serious effect, it causes very serious effect. He may lose his sight. So immediately eye contamination should be cleaned thoroughly with fresh water or normal saline. The skin contamination also should be cleaned by irrigation with the water. And poison elimination. Poison elimination is by different methods. You can give stomach wash, and you can do other methods. We'll discuss later on. And next is antidote administration. That means, unfortunately, we are having less than 5% poisons only, are having only antidotes. This antidote is substance to immediately it neutralizes the effects of the poison. And nursing and psychiatric care. Whenever a patient is unconscious or comatose patient, then it is very utmost important of medical staff and the doctor to give the psychiatric and nursing care. Now, stabilization. How to stabilize the patient? If a patient is crisis, after immediately you see the patient. If the patient is crisis, that means the patient is sometimes the patient is unconscious. Sometimes he may be in a state of SOB or in a state of shock, or in some toxic substances. The patient may be convulsions, or the patient may present with agitation, violent behavior, or any other conditions. So first you should stabilize the patient. You should treat. First you should look after the airway and breathing. How he is taking breath. Any obstruction is there. Any SOB is present. The symptoms of obstruction includes dyspnea or air hunger or hoarseness of the breathing, or any stridor is presenting, or intercostal muscles or substernal muscles contracting, like that. These are all the symptoms to diagnose the crisis of the breathing. So immediately you should observe and stabilize the patient. Circulatory disturbances. What are the circulatory? The pulse rate may be decreased, pulse rate may be increased, tachycardia develops, or bradycardia. Either these presentations will be presented to the patient. So any cardiac arrhythmias are there, BP falls, heart rate will be fallen, like that. You should see the circulatory defects. Next, what is the respiratory depression? Failure of some drugs cause respiratory depression, and some drugs causes respiratory stimulants, and some drugs produce cardiac arrhythmias, and some drugs produce asthma like NSAIDs, and some drugs cause anaphylactic shock. So all these causes should be evaluated and treated. And then depression of the central nervous system. If any person is in a comatose condition, you have to observe. This is ABCD: airway, breathing, circulatory defects, and depression of the central nervous system. This ABCD resuscitation is very important. Whether the patient is coma or semi-comatose or erosible state, you should come to a you should assess the case and treat the case. Whether the patient is in a comatose condition or not, the Glasgow Coma Scale will indicate that the person is coma or not. I told you very in the beginning that coma is so many conditions. The coma will be the patient presents with coma in road traffic accidents or some other drugs, some toxic substances, any more causes, or if the person may pretend unconsciousness. That means if a person pretending coma, that means unconscious state because of attention drawing from the relatives or parents. That means he may attempted suicide, or suicide gesture, like that, or para-suicide. He will pretend that he is not truly attempting suicide, and he will act as ingested poison. That means if you observe his room, that means he will make a phone call to the parents, or he will make a phone call to the friends that he is committing suicide, like that. He will throw all the tablets to the surrounding his bed, like that. So whether the person or the patient really comatose or not, like that, you should differentiate all these conditions. Some of the important features are: if you pinch the nipples of the female patient, or if you pinch the genitals of the patient, or if you pinch the skin of the patient, that means these are the, if he withdraws, then he is in a comatose condition. If you lift the upper limb of the patient and suddenly falls, if you drop the upper limb, If a person is really comatose, it will be suddenly falls from his side. If he is pretending, that he will slowly fall like that. If you put the gadgets like cotton gadgets into his nostrils or the ear lobules, he will, if it is false or he is acting coma, he is not responding. If he is unconscious, then the according to Glasgow coma scale, you can differentiate like that. I told you in the previous class itself all this. So levels of the Glasgow coma scale are grade 0, grade 1, 2, 3, 4. Grade 0 is fully conscious, that means arousable, the patient is arousable. Grade 1 is drowsy but not responding to the verbal command. Grade 2 is maximum response to the minimal painful stimulus, that means he will be semi-comatose. Semi-comatose condition, the reflexes are intact, but he is response to the painful stimulus. Now grade 3 is comatose condition, but he is not responding to the painful stimulus, but reflexes are intact. No, there is no respiratory depression. Grade 4 is he is no comatose condition, but he is lost all the stimulus and respiratory depression also presents. This is the Glasgow coma scale. There are several other scales: reaction level scale and comprehensive level of conscious scale and coma recovery scale and Reed's classification itself. All these are all the several scales to establish the condition of the coma of the patient. So coma also produced due to the psychogenic or hysterical coma. And this is, I told you all this: suicide, gesture, attempt of suicide or para-suicide. How to manage this respiratory insufficiency? If you establish that the person is short of breathing, that means shortness of breath, then immediately you should clear the airways. That means there may be mucus or any respiratory, any discharges from the nostrils lodged in the hypopharynx, and you should clear the airways by suction apparatus and remove the dentures, and you should lift the chin and the upper jaw and put the airway into the mouth and remove saliva, vomitus, all those clearance of the air passages. And you have to give the immediately you must secure, whenever a patient receives, you should secure IV line, because if you not secure immediately IV line, if the patient may goes to the shock and the veins may collapse, you should not secure the IV line. So all the medicines should go through the IV line. First of all, you should secure the IV line, and then you put the oxygen. You should put the you should examine the pulse oximeter and should examine what is the oxygen saturation, and immediately if he is in a shortness of breath, give the mask ventilation, and then if the patient is in hypotension, you should raise the foot end elevation. All these measures have to be taken. That means Trendelenburg position and insert IV cannula, I told you, and then give saline, normal saline, to restore the patient from the shock. If you treat with bolus of 500 ml normal saline or 1 liter normal saline, if the patient not improve his blood pressure, then you must give the dopamine or noradrenaline, either syringe pump, through syringe pump or fluid pump. These drips, inotropes support should be given to stabilize or to maintain the blood pressure. This is the to maintain the circulatory defects. If the patient is in cardiac arrhythmias, produce any ventricular tachycardia, any other arrhythmias or supraventricular tachycardia, then you should take immediately. You have to take ECG, and the first line of treatment to cardiac arrhythmias is lignocaine. You should give the lignocaine and then amiodarone. Then how to manage the CNS depression? Immediately, if the person in a semi-comatose or semi-conscious state, you should give the coma cocktail. This is not in much use nowadays, but in the good old days, they used to give the coma cocktail. Coma cocktail consists of the dextrose, 100 ml, and thiamine and naloxone. And immediately, if a person is a comatose condition, you will not tell the history. So you have to take the history from the relatives, and you should follow the protocol of treatment. If he is having hypothermia or hyperthermia or any other conditions, whether he is violating in a agitating state or in a any respiratory depression state, all these stages you have to. If the patient is presenting hypothermia, some drugs produces these hypothermia like alcohol, antidepressants. You should treat the patient. Some agents produce hyperthermia. If the patient is in a condition of hypothermia, rewarm the patient. That means you should cover the person with warm water, covers with warm blanket, or you should give the warm water, warm saline into the stomach. Then the patient may gradually develops warmth. And hyperthermia. If the patient is suffering with hyperthermia, then some drugs, some toxic substances like amphetamines and some muscular hyperactivity produce hyperthermia. These hyperthermia are, there are two: malignant hyperthermia and some antipsychotic drugs also produce hyperthermia. Antidepressants, cocaine, ammonium oxidase inhibitors, all these produces hyperthermia. And what is the treatment? Remove all cloths and a pack of ice, cold sponge should be given to the patient, and you should not do the paracetamol, it is useless. So dantrolene can be given to the hyperthermia. It should be control the temperature. Main important is cold sponge is very important. If hyperthermia, when will you treat that this patient is hyperthermia? If the temperature is more than 1 or 2 degrees Fahrenheit, then you can consider that the person is hyperthermia. Like then, what is the fluid disturbance, acid-based disturbances? If you take the arterial blood gas analysis, then whether the patient is suffering with acid-based disorders, or what is the pH of the person, whether he is suffering with metabolic acidosis or not, like that, any lactic acidosis or any respiratory alkalosis or respiratory acidosis, like all those acid-based disorders should be revealed by arterial blood gas analysis, and according to the condition you should treat the patient. So in the case of metabolic acidosis, calculate the anion gap. That means anion gap should be calculated like this: sodium plus potassium minus HCO3 plus chloride. Normally sodium plus potassium is 140 minus HCO3 and chloride is 24 plus 104 gives 12 millimoles. So normal range is 12 to 16 millimoles per liter. This is the anion gap. Whether the person is suffering with anion gap metabolic acidosis or non-gap metabolic acidosis, you should diagnose, and immediately, if the person is in a condition of acidosis, you should treat the patient by giving the HCO3, that soda bicarb. You have to calculate the soda bicarb according to this equation and give the bolus of the soda bicarb. It is the best antidote to treat the metabolic acidosis. So if the person is in a stage of agitation, that means some toxic substances, some poisons produce hypoglycemia or hypoxia, and this person may produce symptoms like head injury. So like, what are those in a agitation mood of the patient? That patient is very uncooperative, incoherent, and violent behavior. So what are those symptoms? Delirium. These characterized by disorientation and fears, hyperexcitability, hallucination. These are the deliriums, the state of delirium of the patient. This is under agitation. And dementia, that means loss of memory. All those characters will be seen in an agitated patient. What is the treatment of agitation? Delirium should be managed by chlorpromazine and diazepam. And also some movement disorders like Parkinsonian manifestations and myopathies, whether it is those myopathies may be drug-induced or any congenital anomalies like myositis ossificans or myositis fibrosa or any other myopathies, myasthenia gravis, or any other myopathies can be treated. All these are the muscular movements, akathisia. This is very extraordinary character of the agitation or muscular movements, muscular dystrophies. That means extreme restlessness and movement and muscular quivering. This is akathisia. And dystonia, facial grimacing, facial muscular movements, facial grimacia, fine muscular movements, facial movements you can observe in your practice. Chorea, that involuntary breathing movements of the limbs. And dyskinesia, characterized by stereotyped and slow rhythmic movements. And myasthenia crisis, and fasciculations or contractions of the muscle, fasciculations. You can see in the case of tetanus, these fasciculations are more prominent in case of tetanic patients. Tetanus. These muscular movements can be treated. And then very important point is electrolyte disturbances. You must see the electrolyte disturbances. You should whether the patient serum electrolytes. If you see the serum electrolytes are in case of ABG also, the electrolytes will be revealed. Then whether the patient is in a kind of state of hyperkalemia or hypokalemia or hypernatremia or hyponatremia or hypercalcemia or hypomagnesemia or any other condition, you can see in the blood ABG. And then according to that, your treatment will be protocol of the treatment will be followed. If the patient is hyperkalemia, then you take ECG. The characteristic features of hyperkalemia in ECG is tall T waves, peak T waves, and ST segment depression and prolonged PR interval and QRS prolongation. This is the hyperkalemia. Treatment of hyperkalemia, you should give the 5% dextrose and normal saline. Off saline. It will be the treatment for hyperkalemia. Hypokalemia, ECG changes are very characteristic. ECG changes in hypokalemia is or flat or inverted T waves, prominent U waves, and ST segment depression. These are the characteristic features of ECG in hypokalemia. The treatment is you should give the potassium chloride in a syringe pump. Hypernatremia, if the sodium level more than 150 milliequivalents per liter, then the treatment should be include colchicine and lithium. And hyponatremia, if the sodium level less than 130 milliequivalents per liter, then you should the causes of hypernatremia are drugs like colchicine and lithium, and the causes of hyponatremia are carbamazepine and chlorpromide. And hyponatremia, you should give the sodium chloride. Hypocalcemia, calcium level less than 4 milliequivalents. Causes of drugs, that means some drugs, what are those drugs? Hydrogen sulfuride and oxalates causes hypocalcemia. So this is the ABCD evaluation and treatment. And then stabilization and evaluation. Then decontamination. What is the decontamination? Eye decontamination. If any poisonous substance spill into the eye, then you should immediately irrigate the eye copiously, at least 15 to 20 minutes to prevent the damage of the cornea. Then skin decontamination should be treated. Wash the portion, remove the cloths of that poisonous substance and wash the skin with cold water. Next, removal of the poison from the gut. This removal of the poison from the gut by these methods. Those are emesis, gastric lavage, catharsis, and activated charcoal and bowl irrigation. These are the methods of removal of the poisonous substance from intestinal poisonous substance which enters the circulation through GIT. Ingested poison. Treatment should be removal of the poison. In our Narayan Reddy textbook, the treatment of the poison is stabilization, ABCD resuscitation, and removal of the poison. Number second heading is removal of the poison by inhaled poisons, ingested poisons, injected poisons and contact poisons. Like that, in your textbook, I told you this injected or ingested poisons are removed by emesis and gastric lavage and catharsis, activated charcoal and whole bole irrigation. So emesis, how to clean the gastric contents by emesis? By inducing the emesis, that means vomiting, you should clean the intestinal GIT tract through emesis. Inducing the emesis, that means you can induce the emetic by trickling of the throat by your finger. You can induce if the person is in a erosible state, not in a comatose condition, then you can trickling of the throat by your finger. He may produce vomiting, gag reflex, and he may vomit the poisonous substance. Or in good olden days, one root of the ipcac tree. The ipcac is a shrub, and the root of this shrub, it is well grown in West Bengal. This root of this shrub will contain active principles of cephalin, emetin, and psychotrorin. These active principles induce emesis, and by this induction of emesis, the poisonous substance will be expelled through vomiting. This is the aim of the emesis. Indications. What are the indications of emesis? If the patient is conscious, then only we should induce the emesis. The mode of action is this ipcac syrup produce the peripheral sensory receptors. That means it stimulate the and activate the peripheral sensory receptors and also central vomiting center. Stimulate chemoreceptor trigger zone or central receptor vomiting center. Then it induces the vomiting. Dose of the ipcac is 30 ml adult, 50 ml child. What are the contraindications? Very young, less than 1 year, you should not give the ipcac syrup. Pregnancy and heart diseases should not give the ipcac syrup. And if the patient has convulsions and impaired gag reflex and comatose patient, you should not induce the emesis. Complications of the emesis are cardiotoxicity, myocarditis, aspiration pneumonia, esophageal Malgreves syndrome or esophageal varices may develop due to this induced emesis. These are very, very important portion of the chapter. These will be given as short notes or essay question also. Gastric lavage. Gastric lavage is one of the most important cleaning of the stomach through lavage, stomach wash. Indications of gastric lavage is recommended mainly for patients who have ingested life-threatening dose or heavy poisonous substance. It is very, very useful if the patient brought to you within 1 to 2 hours of ingestion of the poison. Gastric lavage is very, very useful. What are the precautions you should take before giving the gastric lavage? Never undertake lavage in a patient who has ingested non-toxic agent. If the patient ingested non-toxic material, you should not give the gastric lavage. There is no use to do gastric lavage or non-toxic amount. So what are the contraindications? Main contraindication is the principal contraindication is if the person ingested corrosive substance, you should not do the gastric lavage because it produces perforation. Hemorrhagic diathesis, if the patient is having pre-existing disorders of hemorrhagic diathesis and esophageal varices, you should not give the gastric lavage. Important instrument is evacuator, and in India we use usually Eval's tube. This is very, very important, and I spotted to you photograph Eval's tube. This is short notes. Eval's tube contains a funnel and a rubber tube and having a bulb, and with a again rubber tube. Immediately after the bulb there is a gauze and nozzle. The nozzle will be introduced through oral and up to the mark 50 centimeters. It should be introduced through oral to the stomach only. You have to take care before introducing the Eval's tube it may enters into the glottis and it may enters into the bronchus. So before introducing the Eval's tube, we should intubate the patient to prevent the prevention of entering the Eval's tube into the trachea. So Eval's tube should be introduced in our nasogastric tube should not be used because the bore is very low. Minimum diameter of the tube will be 22 mm diameter. So Ryle's tube can be used, and this Ryle's tube can be passed to the stomach, and it will be connected to the suction apparatus. What are the complications of gastric lavage? Aspiration pneumonia may be developed, laryngospasm may develop, and sinus bradycardia may be developed. Perforation of the stomach or esophagus with the faulty technique to introduce the gastric lavage tube. These are the complications of the gastric lavage. After introducing the Eval's tube, you may clean the stomach with normal saline or fresh water. If some poisonous substances will not use. Stomach wash should not be done by normal saline because of the hypernatremia may develop or hypermagnesiemia may develop. This is hypermagnesiemia is life-threatening. So freshwater gastric lavage or freshwater stomach wash is very advisable to wash the stomach. Stomach wash is very beneficial if the patient brought to you within 1 to 2 hours of ingestion. Catharsis. This is another method of cleaning the stomach. It is produced by purging or cleaning the purification of the gastrointestinal tract, whole bowl from stomach to intestine. This poisonous, the main aim is to eliminate, to excrete the all poisonous substance. Two main groups of cathartics. That means these cathartics are ionic or saline. The main function of these cathartics are they alter the physico-chemical forces within the intestinal lumen and leading to osmotic retention of the fluid, and this retention of the fluid will enhances the reflexes and produces expulsion from the intestine. This is the principle underlying this catharsis. So we should use normally we should use the ionic or saline catharsis. Those are magnesium citrate, magnesium sulfate, and sodium sulfate are the chemicals used as catharsis. And also saccharides also can be used as cathartics. Sorbitol, that means D-glucidol is the cathartic of choice in adults. What are the contraindications of catharsis? Corrosives, we should not use catharsis. Existing electrolyte imbalance, if the patient is in a state of electrolyte imbalance, we should not use. And paralytic ileus is another contraindication. Activated charcoal is another method of inactivating the poisonous substance in the stomach. It is very important short notes. Activated charcoal or medicinal charcoal. This is a colorless, tasteless, odorless, burnt, toasted powder of either coconut shell or some burning wood. This charcoal is produced by this burning wood or coconut shell, burnt coconut shells or bone, sucrose or rich starch. The main aim is this starch, burnt powder of this charcoal absorbs the poisonous substance. That means these particles are extremely smallest particles and they absorb extremely having large surface area. These extremely smallest particles are having extremely large surface area and absorb the poisonous substance into this charcoal. The absorbing capacity of this charcoal is very large. That means each particle absorbs 1000 meters of the area. each gram of activated charcoal has surface area of 1000 square meters. So this activated charcoal absorbs the all poisonous substance on its surface. So what are the disadvantages of the cathartics? These are having unpleasant taste and they provoke vomiting and they may induce constipation or diarrhea. What are the contraindications? Absence, if the patient is having absent bowel sounds or paralytic ileus, crude ileus, paralytic ileus, you should not give. And next procedure is whole bowel irrigation. That means whole gut lavage. That means from stomach to large intestine. These are if the person ingested large amounts of toxic substances, or some smugglers will ingest or some like brown sugar, heroin, or any other smuggling goods, they will ingest and travel. These persons are called as cocaine-filled packets. These body packer syndrome. We will discuss in the next chapters. These persons will treat by this whole bowel irrigation method of this whole bowel irrigation. And the procedure is you should give the material which is by purging or laxating effect. This material should be evacuated from the intestinal tract. What are the those substances are polyethylene glycol, PEG-RED, PEG-MOV, all those PEG, PEG, PEG-MOV, PEG-LEC, all those are act as purgatives, and these purgatives will irrigate the bowel, whole bowel, and expel the contents of the poisonous substance. What are the complications of these whole bowel irrigation? These may produce vomiting or abdominal distension or cramps. Contraindications: if the patient is suffering with gastrointestinal pathology or any other hemorrhagic disease, you should not give these PEG-RED or PEG-MOV, all that means whole bowel irrigation materials. Next is elimination of the poisonous substances by these following methods: forced diuresis and extracorporeal techniques, hemodialysis, hemoperfusion, peritoneal dialysis, hemofiltration, plasmapheresis, plasmaperfusion, and cardiopulmonary bypass. Forced diuresis is you should induce the diuresis by force, by adding some methods, some inducing some diuretics. You should give some diuretics or hemodialysis will expel the renal excretion to improve, to enhance the renal excretion of the poisonous material. All these methods will be used to clean the, to eliminate the poisonous material. And next is another important method of treating the patient is antidote administration. The antidote administration is very, very important method of treating the person or the patient. But this, unfortunately, we are having only some poisonous are having only these antidotes. Only less than 5% of poisonous substances are having antidotes. For example, we are having ralidoxan in case of organophosphorus poisons. Antidote is substance that counteracts or neutralizes the action of the poisonous substance. This antidote, definition of the antidote is, this antidote counteracts or neutralizes the action of the poisonous substance. These antidotes works in the following ways. That means these following ways, these are the ways of action of antidote. Number one is inert complex formation. That means whenever you introduce the antidote, this forms a inert complex with that poisonous substance. That means it forms a insoluble substance which is harmless, and it will be excreted through the body. So as the formation of inert complex which is harmless to the body, and eliminated from. For example, chelating agents for heavy metals. I will tell you what are the chelating agents. And accelerated detoxification. This is the another method of way of action of antidote. Some antidote accelerates detoxification. That means it detoxifies the toxic action of the poison. For example, thiosulfate accelerates the conversion of cyanide to non-toxic thiocyanate. This thiosulfate is the antidote for cyanide poisoning, and it converts the cyanide to non-toxic thiocyanide and acetylcysteine. This is harmless and reduces toxic conversion. And this antidote, some antidotes reduces the toxic conversion. That means it inhibits the metabolism of the mode of action. It alters the mode of action of the poison. Ethanol, which inhibits the metabolism of methanol to toxic metabolites by competing for the same enzyme, alcohol dehydrogenase. That means in case of ethanol poisoning, if you give the in case of methanol poisoning, if you give the ethanol, this competes with the same enzyme and reduce the metabolism of the methanol, like that. Receptor site competition. That means these antidotes displaces the position from the specific receptor sites, thereby antagonizing the effects completely. This is another type of action of antidotes. Receptor site blockades. That means, for example, the mode of action is the action of the poison, which acts the site of action of the poison. The antidote is blocks. The antidote blocks the site of action of this poison substance. That means, for example, anticholinesterase agent. In case of organophosphorus poisonous at muscarinic receptor sites, it changes the site of the organophosphorus poisonous. Like that, these are the antidotes will block the site of the poisonous substance. And toxic effect bypass. These antidotes acts in this way. For example, the antidotal action is provided by the use of 100% oxygen in case of cyanide poisoning or carbon monoxide poisoning. If a patient inhales carbon monoxide, if you give the 100% oxygen, the poisonous effect of the carbon monoxide will be bypassed by giving this oxygen, 100% oxygen. This is the toxic effect bypass. The way of action of antibiotic is toxic effect bypass. These are the 6 ways of acting antidotes. So in the common dose patient, nursing and psychiatric care is very, very important. In case of antidotes, I have to tell very, very important. Classification of antidotes. Mechanical antidotes. Number 1 is mechanical antidotes. Number 2 is chemical antidotes. Number 3 is physiological or physical pharmacological antidotes. These antidotes, I will tell you after completion of the treatment part. Nursing and psychiatric care, even in a complex patient, is very, very important. And then removal of the poisons according to our textbook. Inhaled poisons, ingested poisons, injected poisons, and contact poisons and ingested poisons. In ingested poisons, I told you gastric lavage and emesis. This is the Ipcac tree. So the roots of the Ipcac tree. These roots contain active principles of cephalin. This induces emesis. This is the Eval's tube. It will be produced in your practical examination. This is the nasogastric tube. This is the activated charcoal. Activated charcoal, the smallest particles absorbs, enters into the stomach. It will absorb the pores available on the charcoal will absorb the poisonous substance onto their surface. They are having the largest surface area, and so they absorb the poisonous substance onto their surface. And this is the hemodialyzer. The hemodialysis, that forced dialysis by method of hemodialysis or hemoperfusion or any other extracorporeal techniques, you can give the dialysis. Dialysis is containing three components. One is dialyzer and the blood bypass, that means arteriovenous shunt and the dialyzer itself and also dialysate. These three components are very important components of hemodialyzer, and a method of purifying the substance, poisonous substance through kidneys is the hemodialysis. So contraindication of hemodialysis will be very important. The only absolute contraindication for gastric lavage, I am telling, corrosive poisoning and convulsant poisons. This is the contraindications for gastric lavage. I told you already. The slides are altered. These are, I told you, complications. So administration of antidotes, inert complex compounds, I told you all this. So types of antidotes: mechanical or physical antidotes. They neutralize the poisons by mechanical action. These are mechanical antidotes. Activated charcoal is a fine black odorless powder. This is a mechanical antidote. I told you all this. And demulcents also mechanical antidotes. These demulcents are substances which form a protective coating around the mucosa of the stomach, and they protect the mucosa from the poisonous effect, poisonous substance. Examples of the demulcents are milk, starch, egg white, mineral oil, milk of magnesia, aluminum hydroxide. These are all the demulcents which form a protective coat surrounding the mucosa of the stomach. And bulky food also mechanical antidote, acts as a mechanical antidote, and this bulky food helps to reduce the absorption of the poisonous substance from the mucosa of the stomach. And multi-dose activated charcoal, that means activated charcoal can be given in a repeated dose. This is called as multi-dose activated charcoal. The usual dose is 50 to 100 mg or 50 to 150 mg. These can be divided, doses can be given in a multi-dose, like that 1 hour, 2 hours, 2nd hourly, 3rd hourly, 4th hourly, 6th hourly. Like that, this charcoal can be given as multi-dose activated charcoal. Number 2, second type of antidotes are chemical antidotes. They counteract the poison action of the poison by forming harmless insoluble compounds. Insoluble compounds are by oxidizing the poison when brought come into contact with them. That means chemical antidotes, the action of chemical antidotes is they unite with the poisonous substance and form insoluble compounds by oxidizing the poisonous substance, and these insoluble compounds are not harmless to the person. Common salt, for example, common salt decomposes silver nitrate by direct chemical action, forming the insoluble silver chloride, like that. And albumin precipitates mercury chloride. Dialyzed iron is used to neutralize the arsenic. Copper sulfate is used to precipitate the phosphorus, and potassium permanganate has oxidizing properties. Like that, as a solution of tincture iodine or Lugol's iodine, 15 drops precipitates most alkalides like lead, mercury, silver, quinine. Tannic acid 4% or tannin in the form of a strong tea or teaspoonful tannic acid in water tends to precipitate aminophylline, cinchona, strychnine. Like that, these chemical action of the antidotes will reduce the toxic effect of the poisonous substance. Physiological or pharmacological antidotes, they act on the tissues of the body and produce symptoms exactly opposite to those of the poison. That means they antagonize the action of the poisonous substance, antagonistic action of the antidote. These are chelating agents. These chelating agents are metal complexing agents. That means this substance, when unites with the heavy metals, they form a complex substance. This complex substance produces ineffective or less toxic effect of the poisonous. This complex of the agent and metal is more water soluble than the metal itself, and resulting higher renal excretion of the complex. So these chelating agents, when used, these form as a water soluble substance and form a mixture. This is these chelating agents are used with the poisonous of heavy metals, and these chelating agents form as a complex material, and this material is water soluble, and this enhances the exertion of the poisonous substance. Number one of chelating agent is BAL, British anti-levisate or dimercaprol. This dimercaprol is a physiological antidote. It is used in arsenic and lead, bismuth, copper, mercury, gold, thallium, and antimony poisoning. And many heavy metals have great affinity for sulfhydryl radicals. And this BAL, British anti-levisate, contains 2 sulfhydryl groups, and these sulfhydryl groups absorb and form a complex with the poisonous substance of if the person has poisoning with the arsenic and lead, bismuth, and copper and mercury, and this these 2 sulfhydryl groups forms a mixture, and which is soluble water and expel the poisonous substance. And dimercaprol, this British anti-levisate, also called as dimercaprol. I told you all these 2 sulfhydryl and forms a complex and expels the poisonous substance. EDTA is another chelating agent. Ethylene diamine tetraestic acid. It is used in the poisoning of calcium disulfide. These are all the synonyms of the EDTA. It is a chelating agent and is effective in lead poisoning, mercury poisoning, copper poisoning, cobalt and cadmium, iron and nickel poisoning. The usual dose is 25 to 35 milligrams per kg body weight, and 250 to 500 ml of 5% glucose, and this forms complex and this should be given in a 1 to 2 hour period twice daily for 5 days. This is can be repeated after 2 to 3 days. Penicillamine. These are the names: cupramine and dimethylcysteine. It is a hydrolysis product of penicillin, and it has a stable SH group sulfhydryl groups, and it is given in a dose of 30 milligrams per kg body weight up to a total of 2 grams per day in 4 divided doses, and orally for about 7 days, and 1 to 3 grams can be given in slow normal saline drip daily for 2 to 4 days. And another chelating agent is DMSA, that means Saccimol meso 2,3-dimercaptosuccinic acid. It is used in lead, mercury and arsenic poisoning. It is superior to EDTA in the treatment of lead poisoning, as it does not lead to redistribution of the lead to the brain. It is less toxic to the kidneys. It can be given in patients with G6 PGD deficiency. DMP is another chelating agent, 2,3-dimercaptopropane or isulfonate. It is effective in the treatment of mercury, lead and arsenic poisoning. It is given in a dose of 5 milligrams per kg IV in 6 divided doses, followed by 100 mg orally twice day for 24 days. Desferoxamine. It is another chelating agent. It contains trivalent iron as a chelate and is very useful in acute iron poisoning. 8 to 12 grams is given orally daily to absorb iron in the stomach. 2 grams in 5% of Livoluse solution is given IV to bind absorbed iron. Repeated 12 hourly if necessary. Elimination of poison by excretion, I told you. Forced diuresis and hemodialysis, purging, whole bowel irrigation, forced alkaline diuresis and peritoneal dialysis, hemodialysis. All these methods should be given to eliminate the poison through renal elimination. Charcoal hemoperfusion. This is useful even in highly protein bound substances that have a large volume of distribution and are lipid soluble substances. I told you all these. Whole bowel irrigation done by Paglac, Pagmove, all by purging they will use, and hemodialysis, 3 components: dialyzer, the dialysate, and the blood bypass technique. Bypass the AV fistula. The patient can be have a surgery to produce a arteriovenous fistula. Through this fistula, the dialysis will be done. Peritoneal dialysis through abdomen. Peritoneal dialysis can be done to eliminate the poisonous substance. Purging, I told you. So this is the treatment part of any poisoning case. If you, I think if you understood this, any doubts you can ask. The treatment part is very, very important in case of poisoning cases, any drug poisoning cases. The prime duty of the medical graduate is the treatment and care of the patient. Whenever you receive a patient, if he is in a crisis, you should do the ABCD resuscitation. I will tell you again if you want. When you come to the classes, I will tell you. I will discuss. Okay, thank you, students. You will have the second internal examination from medical legal aspects of wounds up to this general consideration of the toxicology. We will give the 50 MCQs. Each carries 1 mark, and the time is 1 hour. It is, I think, 8th of August. The second internal examination will be conducted. Okay, we'll. Okay, thank you, students, for your patiently hearing this topic.